This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Simone and her husband took a 3-night sailing on Norwegian Gem out of PortMiami. It went over to Nassau and Great Stirrup, Norwegian's private island. She joins us to talk all about it. How you doing, Simone?
Good morning, Doug.
Good morning. A lot to unpack here. You're typically a Royal Caribbean cruiser, and you decided to take the little jump over to NCL for a sailing to see what you thought. So before we get to the ship, we'll take a step back. What made you want to take this 3-nighter out of Miami?
We really wanted to try something a little bit different. Like you mentioned, we usually sail Royal Caribbean. One thing that we found attractive about some of these Norwegian ads that we've been seeing online and such was sort of this all-inclusive pricing package. So we decided that it would be a good idea to give them a shot and kind of, I don't want to say compare the two, but see if they're a cruise line that we'd want to sail again.
You're in South Carolina. You make your way down to PortMiami. Any pre-cruise time in South Florida?
No. We just, we're lucky enough to be driving distance from Miami. Mm-hmm. It's a long drive, but the driving distance nonetheless. So we just left the night before, drove straight through, and got to the port.
When it came time to board Norwegian Gem, how was the embarkation process, and how long did it take you to get from the curb to the ship? And I'm curious, just because sometimes people find cheaper off-site lots. Did you park there at the pier?
We parked at the pier. The embarkation process was different, to say the least. I wouldn't say it was bad. It just was not what I had experienced before. Mm-hmm. So on other cruise lines, you sign up, most people try and get the earliest embarkation time possible, and then you show up at that time and you do your paperwork, and then you're on the ship. It's pretty seamless. With this, you get an arrival time, and I had assumed that arrival and embarkation were the same thing, and that's on me. Mm-hmm. But we arrived at the earliest time that we could, and Norwegian does not board until closer to about noon, 11:30 noon. So we were sitting in the terminal for a little over an hour, which I'm not used to. However, I will, to their credit, it is a beautiful terminal. I think it's a relatively new terminal. Mm-hmm. They had lots of infused waters and things to keep people hydrated, and I guess kind of keep the area looking pristine, and it was comfortable. Let's put it that way. And they have almost like a little museum in there to occupy your time. So it wasn't bad. It just was different.
Yeah, that terminal opened up in, I believe it was late 2019, like right before COVID, it opened up. And so it's been, about 5 years, but it sat empty for a couple of years there. So pretty much a fairly new terminal. You board the ship. Since this was your first NCL sailing, what were your first impressions boarding the ship, and what did you think of their quote-unquote atrium?
The atrium, so when you walk on the ship, you're coming in, I believe, on deck 4. Mm-hmm. And you don't have that huge, grand atrium feeling that you might have on some other ships. You kind of come in through I believe they call it, like the Centrum is what it would be called on Celebrity or a different cruise line. I think that's what they call it here as well. But you come in through that area. There was a number of crew that was waiting there, kind of hyping up the crowd, kind of dancing with the music. Crew was very nice, very pleasant. They were directing everyone up kind of towards the buffet to get some lunch. So it was kind of your standard, initial thoughts, onboarding kind of process.
Did anything stand out in the atrium or centrum area, that main focal point of the ship when you walked in there? Like Carnival has that some ships, the big massive atrium. Royal Caribbean has the promenade. What did you think of NCL Gem?
What's really neat with with Norwegian is when you're kind of in their central area, they have this giant, it's like a computer monitor television, and it spans like 2 or 3 floors. It's very big. And so they had a lot of fun things on there. So when you embarked, I think there might have been some kind of like previews of excursions and things that you could do that kind of hyped everyone up. And then they do have beautiful kind of like chandeliers. There's this big color changing crystal chandelier that kind of goes through the middle, that's kind of oddly satisfying just to sit and watch it change colors. But yeah, it's very pretty. There's a lot of kind of that old sort of like mahogany wood and really nice chairs. It's very clean, very classy, very upscale looking.
Very cool. What kind of stateroom did you book for this 3-night cruise, and how was it throughout the sailing?
We had an interior stateroom, and it was one of the better staterooms that I've stayed in. The bathroom was surprisingly large. It was about the size of a powder room that you would have in a house. It was actually pretty big. It was I think it was the biggest shower that we've had on any cruise line. It actually felt like a real shower. And the rest of the room was tight, like most interior cabins are. But I do have to give it to them for the bathroom. I mean, you weren't curled up in a ball, and there was plenty of room. Did
the amenities feel modern or up to today's standards as far as like any USB-Cs or anything?
They did not have USB-C outlets. They were just the regular standard outlet. Mm-hmm. As far as amenities go, being modern, I would say it's lagging a little bit there. However, the overall decor of the ship looks like they've kept it up very well. It was very clean, very modern looking. So even though you may not have those USB outlets, I think they kind of made up for it visually.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it served the purpose too, especially with the nice spacious bathroom compared to other ships you've been in there. So that's nice. Let's talk about the dining here on NCL. Of course, they're known for freestyle dining. So it's eat where you want, when you want. Sometimes reservations required, or most of the time. So let me ask you this. Before we actually jump into the restaurants, NCL has that all-inclusive package. It used to be called, I believe, Free at Sea. Now it's like all in or even more, whatever it's called, where a lot of things are included. With the packages, though, did you feel, since this is your first time on there, do they fee you to death on top of that package, or is it pretty straightforward?
So with the all-inclusive package, I had done a lot of research on that. I'm a big fan. I'm a weirdo. I read the fine print a lot. Mm-hmm. And I saw that on a 3-night, we would only get one specialty dining option. So I had gone ahead and opted out of that because it looks like every quote unquote free item that you get, you still pay tax and gratuity on. So we didn't really need that. We always think that there's enough food on the ship that is complimentary. So we had opted out of that. We did keep the drink package, and I think the internet is automatic. So we had internet and the drink package. So, and I was satisfied with that. That was enough for us.
That's really good to hear because that ship has pretty small interior staterooms. Let's talk about dining here on Norwegian, Jim. And we'll start at the buffet area. The name is escaping me because they use a couple different names. What do they call it?
Yeah, so they call that area the garden buffet, I believe. This is where it starts to date itself a little bit because the layout of the buffet is kind of that straight shot, 1-lane highway type of setup. Whereas on some newer ships, they do more of what I call kind of like island stations where it doesn't form a huge line. Mm-hmm. And especially on embarkation day, the buffet is always going to be a madhouse on embarkation day. But in general, there was always a lot of crowding in a very narrow type of straight line. And, people are waiting to get something that's 2 stations down, but you don't want to cut, and it always makes it sort of awkward in those situations. But as far as the food goes, the food was great, honestly, throughout all of NCL. I was super impressed by the food. There's other cruise lines, and I'm including multiple at this point, where I think the buffet is where there could be a lot of room for improvement. Mm-hmm. I honestly can't think of one thing I had, not just in the buffet, but the whole trip, where I said, "Ew, this is gross. I don't want it." It was all pretty solid.
Yeah, over the past decade or so, there's been a lot of chatter of, okay, they're giving you subpar food in the main dining room and in the buffet. Not just NCL, a lot of cruise lines to drive you towards, doing a specialty or a for pay venue. But it sounds like it's not the case on at least GEM. It seems like it's some pretty solid food there for you. And also on that ship, you could go, I believe you can. Is it still like in the back? There's the back terrace there, an extension of the buffet with even more food?
Yes, there is. I believe it's called the Great Outdoors or something like that. It's sort of like almost like having a mini buffet poolside, but the pool's not over there. It's just on the back of the ship. Mm-hmm. It's outdoors. And they have mainly salads and more casual items like hot dogs. And I think I saw some burgers there too. We didn't really eat there. There's also a bar over there too. We didn't hang out much over there except for when we first embarked, because the buffet next door was just so crazy. We decided to go outside and try and break away from the crowd. But then it started torrential rain, so then we had to go back in anyway. But yeah, we didn't really eat out there, but that I could see that being a very nice area to sit and relax and get those aft views if sail away and the weather permits.
Did you I know you didn't actually get the dining package as part of this all-inclusive or all-in plan, but did you make any last-minute decisions on this sailing to maybe dine at a steakhouse or anything?
We did not. No, I was really eyeing Cagney's. I'm kind of kicking myself for not going, because I love a good steakhouse, but no, we didn't do it this time.
How about their quote-unquote main dining room, which is basically come and go as you please? Does this ship have 2 of them, and what did you think of that?
So it has 2 dining rooms. There's the magenta dining room, which I think is a funny name because I don't recall seeing anything magenta in there. That's going to be your more modern, very crisp, clean, almost like a Marriott type of restaurant dining room, contemporary style. And then on the other side, you have the Grand Pacific, which is much more kind of traditional, ornate, Art Deco style. They serve the same menu, so it really doesn't matter which one you go to. We tried both. We went to Magenta the first night. It was nice. It was lovely, but we love kind of the opulent Art Deco style of classic dining, so we did the other 2 nights in Grand Pacific. The service was wonderful. The food was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's just as good, if not better, than some dinners I've paid for on land. It was really that good for complimentary dining. I was a little nervous because when you're on Norwegian, they have freestyle seating or freestyle dining, I believe they call it, where you basically show up whenever you want to eat and someone will seat you. I was a little nervous that would cause really long wait times, but I don't think we waited more than 5 minutes at any point. It was a very seamless process to just get in, get seated, and, within 10 minutes have a server and a menu waiting for you. It was really nice.
Yeah, you kind of answered my next question, actually, which was going to be, how integrated is the app in your dining experience?
The app leaves something to be desired.
Sure.
I wouldn't say as far as dining goes, it was, good or bad. You can see the menus on your app. And and that's very helpful. But they also give you, hard copy menus in the dining room as well. So we didn't really end up using the app for that purpose.
Any other places you may have dined that we didn't talk about? Maybe a grab and go or the coffee shop on board or anything?
Oh, our favorite was Oceans. My husband, he's a big foodie, and he is obsessed with Oceans at this point because it's 24-hour, kind of like a Bennigan's, like bar and grill type of Irish pub food. And they make good food. And his favorite was the Reuben. I mean, they stacked this Reuben up like a New York deli. It was amazing at what you're getting for a free Reuben in this restaurant. And so my husband, after a long day of going to the beach and then, dinner and partying all night and all the fun things you do on a cruise ship, he had his routine, like 3 a.m. Reuben sandwich, and I don't know how anyone can do that, but he found another guy on the ship who also loved to have 3 a.m. Reuben sandwiches.
That's awesome.
And he just was obsessed with Oceans. I liked it too. I enjoyed them for breakfast. They have an amazing French toast there, and their Irish coffee is also really good. But I think the French toast that they serve there, I think it's the same kind you can get in the main dining room or anywhere else on the ship, but just really solid food. It's a great place to hang out. And it also kind of makes a horseshoe on the level above where you enter the ship. So you can look down and listen and watch things like trivia or movies and kind of have like this kind of like bird's eye view of what's going on within the ship. So it's a really great place to hang out, get food, get drinks, and meet people.
Does this ship have a Starbucks on board?
They do. Yes, it's a small Starbucks, and it's on, I believe that's 4 when you first get on the ship.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about the entertainment. I know this was a short cruise, but how did the entertainment stack up for you?
Entertainment was great. They had a show that I haven't seen anything like on other lines on the first night, which was called Blazing Boots. And if you are a fan of country music and you live in the South like I do, you would have just gone bonkers for this show because it was all 90s and early 2000s country music. And that's my era. I'm very Shania Twain Trail-esque. And the gals on the show, they just did a phenomenal job. I mean, everyone who was in there seemed to be singing along and kind of dancing in their seats. So that was great. The next night they had and I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically one of those 70s music production type of shows. And I kind of begrudgingly went because I feel like a lot of cruises do the same thing, and you're going to hear your, Donna Summer or something like this. And it's not really my generation. However, this was the best one I've seen because they included 70s show tunes. So they had done kind of a live production of the opening to like Laverne and Shirley and Welcome Back Kotter and the Brady Bunch. And that I could connect with more because even though the 70s weren't my time period, I think most people have watched an episode of the Brady Bunch at some point in their life. And I don't know, I found that very like nostalgic and fun. So entertainment, it wasn't something crazy where your mouth was left hanging open, but it was very fun and very enjoyable and very relatable for most passengers.
How was the music, the comedy outside of the main theater and venues around the ship?
I don't know if I missed it or if there wasn't a comedian on the ship. We did not see a comedy show. However, there were a lot of very talented musicians. There was a piano man that we really adored, and he performs back kind of mid to aft portion of the ship where they have kind of these more upscale bars right outside of La Bistro over there. And he was just great, and everyone was singing along, and he was funny. So we really enjoyed him. And then they had some other singers that were just really great, who did a lot of, your classic hits, your Michael Jackson, your Lionel Richie, all that good kind of 80s songs that everyone can, dance to and vibe with.
How was the smoke situation in and around the casino on Norwegian Gem?
So their casino, they have a larger casino, and then there's this like little cubby casino that is next to the Bliss nightclub. And I could be mistaken here, but I think the little casino was for smoking and the big casino was non-smoking. If it was the other way around, I did not smell any smoke when I went through the main casino. So, it wasn't bad at all because I didn't even notice that.
Very good. The sea days, as far as crowds and congestion inside and outside by the pool. Actually, I guess I should ask you, on a 3-night sailing, do you even have sea days?
I was going to say we did not have a sea day. It was just Nassau and then Great Stirrup Cay.
Okay, so as you were transiting, we'll say, between islands or back and forth from Miami, the general flow of the ship, the layout, did it ever feel like it was too crowded?
No, I actually really love the style of the ship and its layout. It never felt overly crowded. There was always a place to find a seat. It is, it's a little bit of a smaller ship. It's not the smallest ship, definitely not the biggest. But I think the way that they disperse kind of the areas where people would be relaxing or doing activities is so spread out that, it just was never an issue. I never felt like I was rubbing shoulders with anybody. Any
time around the pool deck, what was the lounge chair situation like? Any deck chair hogs? How did that play out?
Oh, yeah. So we spent a good amount of time at the pool. It wasn't too terrible finding a chair. You still have to keep an eye out and hope that something is available that's not in direct sunlight. Mm-hmm. But we found actually the same spot every day. I don't know if people did notice it or not, but we were in the same 2 lounge chairs every day. And we're not the type to wake up at, 5 a.m. with towels to try and reserve chairs. We walked in maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 11:30, right around lunchtime, and got 2 chairs, no problem, right next to the pool. It was pretty nice.
That's good to hear. All right. Well, as far as your ports of call, you had 2 of them on this 3-night cruise. So you leave PortMiami. What was your first port and what did you do there?
Our first port was Nassau. And for us, because we do cruise fairly regularly, that was essentially our sea day. We've been to Nassau about 1,000 times. So we did not get off the ship there. We spent the day at the pool, kind of just making our own sea day. Okay,
that's fair. And then your next port of call, or I guess island, was Great Stirrup Cay. What was your first? This was your first time going there. What did you think? I guess it's kind of unfair to compare it to the island next door, a perfect day. But talk to us about Great Stirrup.
Yeah. So from the get-go, the worst thing about the sailing was the tendering process. And I know no one ever likes to tender. I know you got to put on your patience pants when you're tendering to a port. So I understood that. The waves were real high that day, but we still were able to get to the island. The issue was the way that the issue was that NCL has changed their tendering process. That's what I've been informed about by other regular cruisers with them. And you no longer get little numbered, okay, you're group 5, you're group 10, what have you. Everyone just kind of lines up at once to try and tender. And they do align kind of vertically going up and down the stairwell by the elevator bank. So a lot of people were cutting the line by taking the elevators down, which kind of created a whole debacle. But eventually we were able to tender. We waited probably about an hour and a half to get on the tender. And then we get to Great Stirrup Cay, nice island. You're in the Caribbean. It's always going to be nice and funny. And I was a little surprised that they didn't have more music or kind of the I guess what I call like the welcome crew when you get to a private island. But that's okay. We had gone and seen a little bar with like a seating area right off to the right-hand side when we had arrived on the island, and we just decided to set up there. Unbeknownst to me, that seems to be the quiet side of the island. I thought it would all kind of be the same. So there's more for me to explore the next time I go to Great Stirrup Cay. But the one thing that really kind of bugged me is I was looking for a chair at Great Stirrup Cay for my husband and myself. And I saw this area with umbrellas, and my husband starts trying to open the umbrella, and we get chased down by one of the staff members saying it's $30 for an umbrella.
Wow.
And this was not like a cabana rental or anything like this. This was, you know, kind of something you would typically just get for free on most private islands. So then you're left trying to find some shade under a palm tree or something like that. So I'll be honest, like one way to really make me kind of in a funk is make me pay for an umbrella. Mm-hmm. It's your island. You brought me there. It seems kind of like a basic thing to have when you're in the Caribbean. But, you know, the water was nice. It is rocky. So if you go, bring some swim shoes. But, you know, the water was warm. It was pretty. There are a couple of dining options on the island if you get hungry. My husband actually, it wasn't labeled. He was trying to find the men's room, and it turned out what we thought was a men's room was an unlabeled taco stand. Mm-hmm. So the labeling is not the best, but they do have things like taco stands. There is a buffet. That buffet was the opposite of everything we experienced on board. The food there was not very good. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's food in your belly on a hot summer day. So there's just more that I think there is to explore, because when I came back home, I looked at more YouTube videos and I was like, wait a minute, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. We didn't see a limbo contest. We didn't see that. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to trying them one more time to see, you know, all the stuff that it sounds like we missed on Great Stirrup Cay.
If you were allowed to walk over there to Perfect Day, which you could at low tide, but you're not supposed to, could you get a free umbrella?
Yes. We even joked about that. I was looking right over at the big balloon, and I said to my husband, I go, honey, we could just swim right over and get a free umbrella. Yeah. So it was kind of our joke.
It is kind of frustrating, though. I totally get your point, and I'm so glad, as much pushback as Carnival Celebration Cay is getting right now out of the gate, like I'm so glad they have umbrellas as far as the eye can see, both by the lagoon and by the beach. I thought, being trained just because I've been to Great Stirrup a few times, that I had to pay for it. So I sat in a lawn chair without an umbrella, and it was right next to me. And the guy's like, you can open that umbrella. I'm like, how much does it cost? He's like, it's included. Just open it. I'm like, oh, okay.
It gave me kind of the vibes, if anyone has ever been to Ocean Cay, mm-hmm. Which is MSC's private island. Yep. You know, over there, you have to pay for your umbrella as well. And over there, you actually have to like lug around your umbrella. You don't have to do that with NCL, but something just rubs me the wrong way when, you know it's going to be sunny, you know it's going to be hot, it's the Caribbean, and you just have that little extra amount of money that you have to pay to enjoy yourself. And I think when you're cruising, it's supposed to be somewhat of an all-inclusive experience. It just kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. I'm
sure you're not the only one there. Now that you've been to a few private destinations / islands, where would you rank Great Stirrup?
I would still put Perfect Day. Perfect Day really is, in my opinion, really perfect. Yeah. You know, just because they have the swim up bar, they have the free, you know, umbrellas, and they're always, I mean, there's just so much to do there. Ocean Cay, I would probably put at the bottom. That's MSC's private island. It's a very new island, very little shade. You got to pay for the umbrellas. Not much to do. Mm-hmm. I would put, and I've also been to Princess Cay, which I don't think they had umbrellas, but they just had plenty of shade. So we enjoyed ourselves there. And there was music and things to do at Princess Cay. So I would put Great Stirrup Cay right underneath Princess Cay. Mm-hmm. But above Ocean Cay. It didn't have a lot to do from my experience this time, again, I acknowledge that there's probably a lot that I missed that I would like to review when I go on my next cruise in November with Norwegian, and we'll be back at Great Stirrup Cay. However, I was informed that this was the first, I guess, private island in the Caribbean. I think they built it in like 1977 is what someone was saying. Mm-hmm. And I just expected it to be a little more developed. I expected there to be more shade. I expected there to be kind of, more infrastructure and buildings and things to do. And I felt like there was some stuff there, just not enough.
I was going to mention what you were saying there. Oh, the tender process, because I was just interviewing someone on Norwegian Viva, one of their newer ships, and they did the tendering process a couple of times, and they told me that they really need to reevaluate the tender policy because they waited almost 2 hours. And he said it was very unfair to have them the way they did it because people were cutting in line too with them.
It was actually one of the, to be quite frank, one of the scariest experiences I've had on a cruise ship because, we see all these YouTube videos of people, fighting on cruise ships. And I've never seen that, quite frankly. But they put the line wraps around this very close quartered stairwell. And as I mentioned before, people were cutting the line left and right. And you're in this small stairwell, shoulder to shoulder with people. And there were a few people that looked like they were going to go fist to cuffs, kind of understandably, because the staff was so minimal, they couldn't really keep people from cutting the line. And so people are getting aggravated, kind of shoving, and that makes everyone else kind of lose their balance. And it was actually a little anxiety wrought because I was saying to myself, like, golly, if one guy pushes or shoves or punches another guy for cutting the line, we all fall.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a dangerous situation. And there was actually a member of the crew that I kind of befriended on this sailing. And I was saying, hey, can we get some more people here? And he's like, we don't, this is all we have. And he was very wide-eyed and looked kind of terrified himself. So I think they just need to bring back like the old school, here's your tender ticket. You're going to be group 15 or whatever that is, where you wait maybe, 15 minutes to get on your tender boat, 30 minutes instead of, waiting an hour and a half to 3 hours to get on the ship because people were getting very, very angry, and it did feel very unjust that people were cutting the line. And then the other thing that we saw was people would say that they had priority and no one checked, or people who are handicapped, for instance, they automatically get priority, understandably so, but they would let a family with like 38 people assist grandma onto the tender boat, which you're like, hang on now. I think you should have 1 or 2 people. You don't need to bring, all of, deck 5 or something with grandma. So it was just, it was kind of chaotic. It was very chaotic. It wasn't kind of chaotic. It was very chaotic.
Well, I guess the good news and the silver lining here is that pier will be opened in December, so they won't have to tender at Great Stirrup at least, but there, doesn't help Grand Cayman or whatnot. But still, for Great Stirrup, we'll have that pier sometime before the end of the year. So you leave Great Stirrup, you're in PortMiami. How was the disembarkation process?
Fantastic. That was probably the easiest debark that I've ever had. And I find debarkation to be pretty seamless no matter who we sail with. But this one was just, I felt like it was from our cabin to go get a cup of coffee in the buffet. And then within like 5 minutes, we were in our car because we parked at the port. It was super seamless, very quick and efficient.
Any first-time tips to offer someone either sailing NCL for the first time or going to Great Stirrup?
I'd say for someone who is going to be sailing the NCL Gem for the first time, you're going to have a wonderful trip. There's going to be lots of fun activities on board, lots of good food. The ship is a very manageable size, especially for a weekend kind of 3-night cruise, which we really appreciated. But you'll need to pack your patience pants if you're tendering, and also become familiar with the embarkation process way ahead of time. Watch some videos on that because this may not be the situation where you want to get the very first time slot like you do with other cruise lines.
Do you feel that the value was there for the price you paid?
I do. There were a lot of kind of high-end cocktails that my husband and I enjoyed, where I know, if we go to Miami or any other major city in the United States, we'd be spending, $25, $28 a cocktail. And, we had a good amount of those. We had, just lovely dining experiences. I think food and drink alone probably paid for it, but there was just so many activities and things to do and see. I think the value is definitely there. And I gotta also go back to the stateroom. Where they lost me on an umbrella, they definitely made up for in an interior cabin with a big bathroom and shower. So yeah, value's there, I think. Yeah.
Would you sail NCL again?
I will, and I am. I have another one scheduled in about 3 months from now. So yeah, I'll give them a second shot, since it sounds like I messed up on Great Stirrup Cay and didn't fully explore everything.
Y'all should come down here. Norwegian Gem is coming to Jacksonville starting in November for like 6 months. They're doing between 4 and 9 night cruises out of here.
I didn't even know that NCL sailed out of Jacksonville, because that's actually pretty close to us here in South Carolina. That's not bad at all. I'll check them out.
Yeah, I think starting in November through like maybe April or May. Looking back, it sounds like the biggest highlight for your husband might have been those Reuben sandwiches at O'Sheehan's, but what was the biggest highlight of y'all's cruise?
Man, I'd say the biggest highlight of our cruise was the piano man. The piano man that they had over by Le Bistro. I don't know what they call the area. It's almost like an atrium part 2. Mm-hmm. But it's just a very nice, clean area. And he was so engaging. And my husband's a very shy guy. And he was so engaging with my husband. My husband started rounding up guys to go dance, pretend to be the Temptations when he was singing and stuff. And I'm like, man, anyone who can be that lively to get my shy husband up and dancing, that's kind of the highlight for me, because I like seeing my husband have a good, fun time. That brings me a lot of joy.
Did you spend any time, I totally forgot to ask you this because it's always an afterthought, they have this Spinnaker Lounge on there, which is more towards the top in front of the ship. Did you go up there at all?
Yes, we really enjoyed the Spinnaker Lounge. If you've been on a Royal Caribbean ship, this would be likely the Viking Crown Lounge. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's used as a nightclub, sometimes it's used for trivia, but essentially it's a bar with a big area of seating with kind of these almost 360-degree windows at the top of the ship. So it's a great place to just grab a cocktail and look out and kind of enjoy. But they did trivia in there. They did a couple of other things. We really enjoyed it. The one downside to it is when we came back from Great Stirrup Cay, the app and the program said that the Spinnaker Lounge bar would be open at, let's say, 4 o'clock. I think that's what it said. Basically, when people got back to the island or got back to the ship from the island. And when we went up there, they were closed, and almost all the bars were still closed. And I guess because they used the same staff, they said that they would be open in an hour or an hour and a half. And that was kind of a bummer, because we do like going up to something like the Spinnaker Lounge when we're on a cruise ship, when you come back from a hot day on an island and just, having a, cold beer or, a soda or something like that. And it was kind of a bummer to go up there and try and relax. And they're like, oh no, there's no cool drinks up here. Go somewhere else. So, but yeah, overall, that's a great place to hang out and lots of activities to do up there. So I recommend the Spinnaker Lounge.
And before we wrap here, any time in the thermal suite or spa?
Not on this sailing, no.
Well, we'll close it out with me asking you your final thoughts of Norwegian Gem.
Yeah, if you're taking a 3 or 4 night sailing, a shorter kind of extended weekend, this is a great ship. It's going to be large enough where there's lots of stuff for you to do, lots of activities, but small enough where you can actually experience it all within an extended weekend. If you enjoy really good food and pretty solid drinks and really a great cruise that knows how to hype up a crowd, I would definitely recommend NCL Gem. And also, if you just like a good classy, kind of more upscale type of ship, I think with their renovations that they've done in the last couple of years, it does not show its age. It still appears like a relatively new ship. And because of those renovations, I think a lot of people will appreciate it and enjoy it.
Very nice. Simone, thank you so much for sharing your review of this 3-nighter on Norwegian Gem. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Doug.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,